October 2003, Thomas and Friends Season 7 episode Peace and Quiet premiered on UK television. In this story, we are introduced to Murdoch, a BR Standard Class 9F tender engine. Murdoch is a mighty, powerful engine with 10 drive wheels, and at the time, he was one of the largest engines on the island of Sodor. Murdoch is shy, strong, and can often be found seeking peace and quiet, pulling heavy goods trains in the countryside rather than being at the hustle and bustle of the docks. This episode explores Murdoch as a character and his need for peace and quiet. But to me, the episode always felt off. Don't get me wrong, the episode is good, but I felt like there was something missing from the story, and I never knew what it was until I read book 43 of the Thomas Story Library to my son's one bedtime in 2022. For those who may not be aware, Egmont Publishing released a series of Thomas and Friends storybooks, giving each character their own individual book. These ranged from established characters such as Thomas and Percy to new characters like Jack, Mighty Mac, and Hector the Horrid. I spoke briefly about the book series' appeal in my Thomas and Friends 2D animation video, but some of these books took original stories from the TV series and, in my opinion, interpreted them better than the TV series did. Murdoch's standalone book in this series, which was released 5 years later than the 2003 episode, is one of those stories, and here's why. For those unaware of the story Peace and Quiet, let's do a quick synopsis. Murdoch is brought to the island of Sodor to help pull heavy goods trains across the main line. He prefers the peace and quiet of the countryside over working with chatterbox engines. With Murdoch being the new engine in Sodor, Harvey and Salty are naturally curious about him as he is sharing a shed with them. They start asking Murdoch questions when he returns to the shed that night, and Murdoch snaps, saying that he wants some peace and quiet and doesn't want to share a shed with chatterboxes. This naturally makes Harvey and Salty upset, as to them, they weren't being rude, they were only being friendly. The next day, Murdoch is pulling a heavy train through the countryside and is stopped as some sheep are on the line. Neither the driver or the fireman can shoo them away, and as they are going to get help, Murdoch is stuck with the sheep bleating at him for hours on end, which makes him miss the shed with the chatterbox engines. Toby turns up to clear the sheep away, Murdoch gets going again, and at night he apologises to Harvey and Salty for his previous attitude the night before. All in all, for an introductory episode, this story is a good one. It's a clear story with a good message and establishes a new character. Murdoch is a simple engine who wants to do his job and get some peace and quiet after a hard day's work. Yes, the way he goes about his response to Harvey and Salty is a bit ball-baggish, but he learns his lesson, and for the rest of the time in the franchise, is seen as a gentle giant who doesn't need to say much to be respected. The phrase, "still waters run deep," used to describe Murdoch by the Thomas and Friends Writer's Bible, is a poignant one. But there is one change that the standalone 2008 Egmont book makes that elevates it above the 2003 Season 7 episode. And it's one that I think you'll be quite surprised at until you hear my reason why. The thing that made the Egmont book better than the Season 7 episode is the removal of Toby. I can feel the shockwaves emanating from whatever screen you're watching this on, but please, allow me to explain. Toby being part of the resolution of the story always felt wrong to me. I understand why he's brought to clear the line, because it's already established that he has experience with clearing animals such as cows and bulls in both the Railway series and Classic series up to this point. But from a story standpoint, it doesn't make sense. This is because when Murdoch first saw Toby arrive, he knew who Toby was and was overjoyed at seeing him. But Murdoch has never met Toby at this point. If Murdoch was an engine who was more established on the island, or even a new character that had had a lot of interaction with Toby on his first day, it would be more justified and would be seen as a logical move. But at this point, Murdoch has only been on the island for 2 days and has had no interaction with Toby. He spoke to Thomas, Harvey, and Salty, and seen Donald and Douglas while he was pulling a heavy goods train in the background. There was no interaction with Toby and Murdoch up until this point. Yet he knows who Toby is and is ecstatic because somehow he knows that Toby will clear the sheep away. You might wonder why this small point in an otherwise solid episode is a particular bugbear to me. After all, it's not as bad as some of the story work that comes in later eras of the franchise. And you're right, it's not as bad until you read the 2008 adaptation. Where this book succeeds over the episode is that they removed Toby and replaced him with two other engines, Harvey and Salty. So let's go through the book adaptation. And it plays out almost shot for shot with the episode. Murdoch arrives on the island of Sodor, snaps at Harvey and Salty at night, and the next day his goods train is halted by sheep on the line. But this is where the crucial change starts to happen. As Murdoch's driver and fireman try to clear the sheep away, they notice that Murdoch's fire has gone out because his boiler has got no pressure, which is a nice nod to how steam engines work, and they go to phone the Fat Controller for help, and Murdoch remains stuck. The next page cuts to the Fat Controller's office, where he is on the phone to Murdoch's driver and fireman. The Fat Controller agrees to send two engines out to help with the situation. And in the background of his office, we see two engines resting in a shed, Harvey and Salty. This plants the seed in the reader's mind that the Fat Controller is going to ask these two engines to go and help Murdoch. And with Murdoch telling the two engines to shut their smoke boxes the night before, it also established that there could be a bit of tension ahead. The next page plays out like the episode. The sheep start driving Murdoch insane, and he would much rather be with the chatterbox engines. The page after, however, sees Harvey and Salty turning up to help Murdoch out of his predicament. Murdoch is glad to see the two engines arrive, they're glad to help, and start clearing the line. This is better than Toby turning up because Murdoch knows these two engines, having already had an unpleasant encounter with them earlier on in the story. But with Harvey and Salty turning up to his aid, and in good spirits, he now realises that if push comes to shove, these engines will help him if he's in trouble. It makes the resolution at the end of the story feel earned, as Murdoch now realises that they're not just two engines looking for dirt and gossip on the newbie on the island, but they're genuinely nice engines who just want to get to know him and potentially make a new friend. Both interpretations have the same happy ending, but the switch from Toby to Harvey and Salty gives you that nice warm feeling in your tummy that only the Railway series books could deliver. For me, as a creator, switching out Toby to Harvey and Salty gave the climax and conclusion that bit more oomph and led to a much more satisfying ending. It sparked my imagination and made me want to see more episodes with this trio and see how a friendship between them could blossom. Sadly, as we know, this never happened, and the fact that the TV series added Arthur and Emily to the berths in their shed showed the potential that was totally squandered. A team of Arthur, Emily, Harvey, Murdoch and Salty could have been to the hit era what the Little Western Gang was to the Railway series. A unique pairing of original engines on another part of the island having their own exciting adventures. While we're at it, include other newbies like Elizabeth, the Horrid Lorries, and even a reformed Green Bulgy. That way, we have some interactions with road vehicles as well. The possibility to churn out quality stories with the right writing staff behind them are enormous, and it could have even developed into its own spin-off series. All of this proves that making one change to a story, no matter how small, can have a major impact on the significance of it to the reader and the viewer. The entire idea of a spin-off came to my head because Egmont's writing team made one change to an established story. As much as I love the character of Toby, and I understand why his character was included in the episodes, his involvement in the story's climax was not the right decision. When you're creating a story, it's important to think about what characters are involved at the beginning and how they can impact the climax and the end. Egmont proved that if you can make one small but logical change, it can turn a good story into a great story. Let me know in the comments what you think of this, and if you would like to see me analyse any other episodes in future. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on chugging.